Well, hello there, my dear children of the apocalypse. Welcome back to Brandolini's Law. Brandolini's Law states that bullshit is significantly easier to conjure up than it is to disprove. And I first heard this, I believe it was on the Joe Rogan podcast, or it might have been related to our good friend Jordan Peterson. That bullshit is 100 times harder to refute than it is to create. What does that mean? It means that if I was to, let's say I have a friend. Let's say my friend's name is Jack, right? And I come up with a lie about Jack. And I say that Jack did something or something happened to him. It could be anything. It could be a very minor thing, it could be a very serious thing. But let's say it's an allegation that Jack did something. And it's completely made up. I'm lying through my teeth when I say this. Well, the problem is that once this story has circulated, once everybody that knows me and knows Jack knows about this supposed thing that happened, Jack will have a very, very difficult time disproving it. See, in the American legal system, you talk often about the right to remain silent, blah, 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 everything, and you do say can and will be used against you, and they say innocent until proven guilty. But I think in the modern world, what's actually happening is that you're guilty until proven innocent, which is really twisted. It's really twisted. And, so many people have been put into this position where they've been, allegedly, they did something, like Johnny Depp, right, was one of the prime examples that was happening in the last year, where he was, he allegedly did bad things to Amber Heard when really it was the other way around. But the problem with this, I think it's also called the asymmetry principle, right? The asymmetry of bullshit is that it's scary because it happens not just in this legal system aspect, but I think it happens with information in general. Somebody comes up with something that doesn't exist. They come up with a lie, and this lie circulates through, TikTok or whatever. And it makes your way to your phone, you're looking at it, and you're like, oh, so that's the truth, even though it maybe is completely the opposite. And it becomes very difficult to then filter through what is true and what isn't true. And I think this is something that we're going to be facing a lot in the future. So the reason I'm making this video is because I want to prepare you for this doubtfulness. And the last video I spoke about doubt, right? I spoke about how I learned from this one NPC contact from the Brazilian woman at the embassy that maybe it's beneficial for you to sometimes doubt things that people tell you with the purpose of coming to the truth, right? Of sort of trickling down those core bits of information and realizing, is this really the way things are? And so whether I'm now reading an article online or looking into a book, or there's just a clip from a movie that I like and there's a quote, and you start asking yourself, well, is this really the case? I always remember there's this scene in Batman Begins, the first Batman movie from Christopher Nolan. And I was watching the behind the scenes. There's one scene where Batman is training with Ra's al Ghul, and they're on this frozen lake, and they're having a sword fight. And then there's this thing where Ra's al Ghul says, yeah, but you have to be careful of your footing, and he sort of breaks the ice underneath Bruce, and Bruce just falls into the frozen lake. And then there's a scene, they're sitting around a fire, and Bruce is sort of like he's trying to heat up his hands and his shoulders. And Ra's al Ghul says that you have to keep your core, right? So warm up the core of your body and the extremities will take care of themselves. And when you're watching the movie, that genuinely sounds like good advice until you watch the behind the scenes, where Christopher Nolan himself says, yeah, it's complete bullshit. I made that up, right? And it's weird because the way that it was portrayed, I watched that movie probably half a dozen times. And every time I watched it, I thought, that's good advice. Yeah, you keep the core of your body warm, you keep your heart warm, and your heart will heat up your... No, wrong. This is not how it works, right? But it's the convenience, it's the determination with which, in this case, Ra's al Ghul, as a character in a video, says a line to Batman that it makes it sound believable. And the problem is that as a kid, I watched the movie so many times. It's internalized. It's in my head now. Whenever I'm cold, I think, oh yeah, just keep the... No, wait a minute. It's harder to unlearn. it's really difficult to unlearn things that we've listened to and heard over and over again and we've been made to believe. And the asymmetry of bullshit for me was a mind changer when I started to realize that perhaps certain things that your parents told you are wrong. It's not like they've deliberately lied to you. It could be that just it's something that they were told that isn't 100% correct. And as you start to get a little bit more scientific, as you meet people that perhaps have, they've got their master degrees or whatever, and they're specialists in their field, and they start to give you information, you might go about and think, oh, wait a minute. It brings me back to the Warthan days when people believed all sorts of things. Somebody said that a vehicle was overpowered or that there was Russian bias, and I believed them, right? Just because they were, let's say, a big YouTuber, or because they had taken clips out of context to show something. These things are always much more difficult to disprove than they are to prove. And this is a problem, again, because it's in the realms of treating energy, in the realms of treating information, if it's easier to create the bullshit than it is to refute it, then we have an asymmetry, right? We have this unbalance that's going to be happening in the world, and we have to fight against it. And that's why I do always urge people to doubt into what you hear, to look into the actual facts, to try it out in your own skin, get the information, and then try to tell the truth. And sometimes the truth hurts, and sometimes the truth is the complete opposite, which I think we'll be also talking about in one of the future videos, is about doing the opposite of what you're told. I've used this principle over the last couple of years, actually, and it's come across as a really surprisingly effective way, where people will tell you to do something, you do the opposite. Right? You have any issues dating a girl? Do the opposite of what your brain is telling you. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes doing the exact opposite of that which society will tell you could just be the solution to the asymmetry. But more about that in one of the future videos. For here and now, all I really want is just for you to know that this asymmetry principle exists, that we are constantly bombarded with information that may be misconstrued, that may be deliberately made that way, or it could just be that it happens, right? Sometimes a white lie, a very small lie, a very inconspicuous lie can turn and snowball into something really, really bad. And so use the asymmetry principle, be aware of it, be knowledgeable of it, combine that with the element of doubt, and in the future, you'll be able to look into a little bit into that by doing the opposite, by sort of fighting against it. Because I think within a couple of years' time, we're going to have bigger problems with this. Because again, with the effects of social media that's so fast, with the reality that everybody can get, out here in front of a camera, share information, even though it could be completely made up, it's a little bit scary. But that's why I'm here, to give you some of the experience, some of the knowledge that I've looked into, that I find interesting, and hopefully you guys, as gamers, because you are very competitive, you'll be able to sort of trickle things down and find a way to apply it in a creative and positive way. Till next time, take care and safe flying.